Hi, my name's Jenny. Welcome to another episode of the Slow Knits Knitting Podcast. I'm a knitter based in Los Angeles, California, and in today's video, instead of a regular knitting podcast, I'm sharing with you everything I want to cast on right now. So recently, I've been struggling with my knitting mojo, I guess. If you saw my last video, I talked about it. A big part of it is I haven't been knitting any satisfactory items. I've been either knitting a lot of things that I'm not happy with, that I don't want to finish. So as a result, I actually haven't had any finished objects in a very long time, except for most recently. I knitted my first pair of socks and I finished those. Other than that, I have been not able to finish things for a while. I just pile up a lot of things that I don't really like. I talked to my friend about it for a little bit, and I think a big reason for that is because I have been, a lot of the projects that I don't like anymore, a lot of them have been impulse cast-ons. Therefore, throughout the process of knitting them, I already am not into them anymore. So I think impulse cast-on is a big problem. And also just not really planning is also a problem for me. So today I have a lot of things, a lot of patterns that I like, a lot of yarn I want to use. I just dumped all of them on a spreadsheet, and today I am sharing this spreadsheet, sharing this pattern dump or yarn dump with you. They are not necessarily plans because there's a lot on the list. I'm just dumping all the things I want to cast on. Hopefully this can help me process and organize my thoughts, my preference, and give me a clear picture of what I want to cast on. Hopefully those will be things I really would enjoy and want to have in the end. So grab your knitting and let's jump into the patterns I want to talk to you. The first one, the first one is a pattern that I am for sure casting on. I've been planning this for a long time. I'm definitely casting on this one. Other than the first one, the rest of the patterns, I'll break it down slightly by a category that makes sense to me. For example, I will have a mohair patterns category that I really want to try. And then I have some Colorworks as usual that I just crave Colorwork. And then I'll also have some patterns that are not for the pattern, but mostly yarn-driven patterns. These are mostly some just stockinette, simple stockinette, but mostly because I want to use these yarns. These will be the rough categories of the patterns I will be sharing. I'll start with the first one, is one that I am definitely casting on. This has been in the planning for a while. As you can see, I have swatched for this pattern many times. This is not the only one in this yarn combination that I did. If you've seen my older videos, I've talked about I want to knit a Jenny jacket, and at that time I originally got the Isair Alpaca 2 yarn to use for the Jenny jacket because I really want her original bottom up crew neck version, that camel color. I really want something just like that camel color. So I got this yarn. This is their Alpaca 2. So it's 50% alpaca, 50% wool. I believe this is an eco, so natural color. I'm not super sure, but I know the color must be 08, if not 07. I thought this will be that kind of camel color that I was looking for, but when I start swatching with it, I realized this is a really dark and quite cool tone, hazelnut, cool tone, grayish brown. That is not what I was looking for. So my next plan was to just use some cone yarns that I already have and make it a light gray, almost creamy white color-ish. But I wasn't super happy with this color and this yarn combination. That's why I was hesitating to cast on. I've had this swatch for a long time. I was very hesitant. Even though I was ready to cast on, but I feel like I was more like settling on this yarn instead of really excited to cast on this color. And for this cardigan, I really want it to be something I'm very happy with that I can have for a very long time. So finally, recently, I got a cone of this yarn. This is a kind of the camel color I was talking about, slightly lighter. So this is one of those dead stock cone yarn for machine knitting mostly. Even though this one is a thicker yarn, it's not super thin. But this is one of those dead stock kind of yarn. I believe you can get things like this from either Colorwork or Etsy. So this is 100% wool. I think it's 100% wool yarn, and I have quite a bit of this cone. Once I received this one, I immediately start swatching because I think this is a color I was looking for, close to the color I was looking for, but I still want to hold it with something else. So I start experimenting, and as you can see, this is my first experiment. I think the color is showing pretty well. And after this, I got another pairing yarn. So this is the last bit one I paired. It's funny, I was showing my husband this one to test him how many different colors are here in this swatch. The answer is I tried 4 different combinations here, and this is the 5th combination. So let me show you what I paired this yarn with. So this is a base color. It's kind of fascinating to see that when you pair a yarn with different things and how differently they can show up. So this bottom part, this 2 rows, I paired it with this color, you can see. It made it less yellowy camel and give it a little bit cool tone, almost purpley pinky kind of hue to it. And at first I thought I wasn't happy with this one. I thought this was too cool tone. So my second one, this middle part, I paired it with this color. I thought this will be a nice camel color to pair with this. But it turned out it is camel, but it's quite yellow. I would almost say it is giving a little bit of a hinge of mustard yellow vibe, which I was not feeling. And then I thought, this is the smallest swatch, so it's hardest to see. And then I thought maybe I'll just hold this color 2-strand, and so basically keep the original color of this. So this tiny section, I held 2-strand of this yarn. But as you can see, without a fuzzy layer, I don't love the stitch right here. I don't love this, how the stitch look with just 2-strand of this. And I also think the color is a little boring. And then my last swatch is this yarn held together with this alpaca color. And you can see it's also very similar. This is kind of the situation with this Isair yarn. It's grayish, and it also just brings a lot of dark tone to the color. It really brought it darker. And then I was waiting for another yarn I was gonna buy to do a last comparison. So this is the last comparison. This time it is held with this color. So I would say this, in terms of darkness, they are very similar in their darkness, and this is slightly more yellow. So I would say this color is the closest to what the original cone looked like. So in the end, I did 5 options for this Jenny jacket pattern. And I wonder what you would pick out of these 5. So these are all the different yarns that I held together with this. These are all the ones I held together. In the end, I still like my first choice. So this will be the combination. I like this better than the last option because I think there's a little bit of difference between these two. Therefore, it creates a little more depth, a little more variation in the yarn. And I also do really appreciate the little slight pinky hues that this color brings. So I finally, after a long time, after so many swatches, I finally have the yarn for my Jenny jacket. This is also cone yarn that I get, just like this. It's one of those machine knitting cone yarn. This is a yarn, this is a wool and brushed cashmere yarn. The only thing that's changed last minute is, before I thought I was gonna knit the Jenny jacket V-neck version, because I think mostly it was because it's knitted top down. I don't want to knit bottom up. But ever since, well, over the past year or 2 years, I realized I really like crew neck cardigans as opposed to V-neck cardigans. I realized I'm just not super into the look of V-neck cardigan. But the biggest problem with this pattern is this top-down V-neck is a drop shoulder. The shoulder line is right here. It's not oversized drop shoulder. It's quite fitted, but drop shoulder. And I really don't like that look. I don't like a non-oversized, but shoulder line is right here kind of look. So I started looking at the original Jenny jacket pattern. It's a bottom-up raglan crew neck. So both of these elements, crew neck and raglan, are things I really, really like. So I've changed my mind and decided to do the original Jenny jacket. Even though it's bottom up, I think it's a good chance for me to do at least once a entire bottom up, including sleeves bottom up, and then connect it here to do a bottom up raglan. I think it'll be a good opportunity for me to try something new. And I don't have to do too many alternations, modifications on the pattern. Because my original thought was maybe I modify the V-neck to be a crew neck, but then I also thought about maybe I modify the shoulder line. That's just too much modification. So I'll just do the original Jenny jacket. So that is number one on my want to knit, on my queue, on my cast on list. Next, I am going to share another pattern that I am for sure casting on. It's just a matter of when, and this is my own design. I have been procrastinating on writing this pattern for a very, very, very long time. One thing is I definitely need to knit up another sample, and I've debated and swatched and swatched and swatched for this second sample for a very, very long time. And I have finally landed on my yarn choice. I've had this drops brush alpaca for a very, very long time. And I did some swatch with this yarn by itself. And you can see this is what it looked like by itself. Oh, it looks so good. And looking at this, it makes me excited to cast this on. The bottom part is just this yarn by itself. As you can see, this pink, I love hot pinks, but this is a quite purpley pink. And I think I look better with warm pinks, and I'm not super into purpley pinks, although I still like this color a lot. So I thought I want to, not only because of the color, I also want to add just a lace weight yarn that can add a little more structure, integrity to a just brushed alpaca yarn. So I finally landed on this Malabrigo lace. I believe it's 100% merino wool lace, and this is 100 gram, or 50 gram, 600 meters, something like that. And this is the color, I'll put it down. I'm not sure how to say that word. So I got a color that is more red and more warm to go with this more purpley color. I've done a little bit of swatch. So you can see the top part is slightly more red and less purple. Ooh, oh, looks so good here. Yeah. So that is my swatch for this one. Now that I look at this, I think I really need to cast this on. So yeah, I'm procrastinating on this pattern just because it's something I've never done. I don't know how to grade the pattern and it's very challenging, so I'm just procrastinating when it comes to a challenging project. But sharing this with you makes me excited, and I definitely should cast this on. Also, that pink just looks gorgeous. I already have this, I have the needles and all that in a project bag, so this should be very ready to go. Next, we're gonna get into the mohair or alpaca kind of yarn. I really want to knit up something with just mohair. I'm just gonna combine mohair plus alpaca to be mohair-y yarn. I really want to knit up a whole garment that is only with this kind of yarn. I haven't done it, but I've seen some other people knit up things like this, and I really love the look of it. And when I do my 2024 roundup, I also said I really want to knit more of these romantic knits that are less of a sweater, but more like a blouse, a very put together, most likely romantic looking blouse. I really want to knit more of these, so I have quite a few patterns saved in this category. I'm going to start with the first one. First one I think I'm very ready to cast on, and that is using this pink mohair. Oh, this looks so good. Looking for the right shade of pink is always a hard time for me. So when I saw this color, I thought this is a great shade of pink for me. It's not too cool tone, it's not too purple, not too red, but also not too bright. It has a little bit of dustiness to it. It looks like a dusty, dry rose kind of pink color. Now that I'm looking at this, because before I already have a pattern for it, and the pattern I'm looking at is the ballerina lace top by Camille. Camille K. You probably know her. She's quite famous for these kind of romantic designs, and I've saved quite a few patterns by her. This one, I wasn't gonna put this one on my queue before just because I am not a fan of wrap top. It just doesn't work for me, I think. As a functional clothing piece, it does not work because I think it just flares open a lot, and also doesn't provide enough warmth because the air is just going in, and if you bend a little bit, it will just flap open. I personally think that this piece of clothing that just does not work for me. So I wasn't gonna put that on my queue until recently. I look at the design more closely. I still really like the lace work, and I love the raglan construction, and I love that it's a mohair yarn kind of top. Everything about it I do love, other than the wrap. So my plan is to convert the wrap part into just a V-neck. So basically the wrap goes increase, 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 increase. Instead of doing that, I'll just stop the increase right here and then go straight down and make it a V-neck top. So, and this design, just like the name, it's a ballerina romance sweater. It is a very romantic design. So I think a romantic design like that calls for pink mohair. I have 3 skeins of this mohair, so I think I have plenty of yarn, and this is also a super kit mohair. So I think this will be a good chance for me to retry mohair. I've tried mohair in my first year of knitting, and I realized it's way too prickly for me. Ever since then, I do not touch it again. But now I start to realize that my tolerance has increased over the years, and also there are differences among mohair, and super kit mohair is the softest. So I'm excited to give it another try, see if I can use mohair again. Now that I'm talking about it, I think this color itself, by itself, looks really good, because my original plan is to tone down the pinkness in it, because I'm just not I'm very picky with my pinks. I don't usually wear a full-on pink top. So I thought I wanted to tone it down by adding more orangeness to it. So I thought about maybe I just need to swatch. I thought maybe I have this lace yarn. I thought about adding this orangey lace yarn to it to tone down the pinkness and add a little bit warmth, add a little bit yellowness and oranginess to it. But now that I'm looking at it, talking about it with you, I do think this pink by itself is very, 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 very pretty. And the original pattern is holding 2 strands of mohair yarn, and the gauge is 20 stitch per 4 inch or 10 centimeter using 4 millimeters. So the gauge is not very small, and surprisingly, I think it's not calling for too much yardage. The range for the smallest to largest in terms of meter for this will be 1600 to 2100 meter of mohair. I don't have enough, but like I said, I'm converting the wrap, so I think I will be using less. So maybe I can just hold this double and get started and have a real experience of just mohair top without pairing any lace weight, wool, without pairing anything, only mohair. Maybe this will be a good chance for me to try actually, now that I think about it. So the next mohair top that I really want to knit, this is probably second on my mohair list that I'm ready to cast on. I just don't have a yarn ready yet. It's also a newer pattern. It's the Twist Light Loop Sweater by Other Loops. It's just another variation of her twist loop design. I have saved this twist loop top and also twist loop sweater, but this is a light mohair version. And I think it makes the piece look more lightweight and flowy, because the original, you have these columns of rib with the cable. It just adds a little bit of thickness and chunkiness to it, but with this mohair, it brings a lot of flowiness to it. So I really like it. And this gauge is almost the same as the previous top I'm talking about. It's on 4 millimeter, and then it's a 20 stitch gauge, holding 2 strands of mohair together. And this one is actually calling for more yarn versus the one we just talked about. This one, the range is 1900 meter to 2900 meters. And for this one, I really don't have a yarn ready for it, mostly because when I try mohair, I don't buy that much. The pink one I showed you is one of the only time I buy really a whole quantity. So that's a pattern that I'm very excited to knit, but I don't have yarn like that ready. Next one is another one by Camille K, and this is the Saguaro sweater. For this style, this design, she has it in a sweater and also a cardigan. I have saved the sweater. This is also 2 strands of mohair. And what I like about this is a top down, I would say it's a saddle shoulder. Based on her photo, I think it looks like a saddle shoulder design with a slightly puffed sleeve. And it's mostly basic stockinette, like the wrong side of stockinette, plus a little bit of brioche columns on it. This one is also something that I do like a lot, but I don't have a yarn ready for it. This one she's calling for, again, 2 strands of mohair, but the gauge is slightly larger. The gauge is 17 stitch on this stockinette / brioche stitch, and it's also using 4 millimeter needles. Again, my problem is for the mohairs I don't have enough meterage to hold double to make this kind of top. So that's another one that's on my list, but probably not top right now just because I don't have the yarn ready for it. Next, I'm going to talk about two patterns that I think potentially I could have the yarn ready for it. The first one is Jewel Scanser by Sandnes Garn. This is from their one of their magazines, 2202, the same magazine where they have the Guernsey Genzer. This one I have always saved on my list. I've seen a few of my friends who've knitted this. I've always liked this. And the best thing about this one is this is only using one strand of mohair. And the meterage is calling for it's 1200 to 1480 meters. So I think I could, usually my meterage is way less than whatever the pattern called for. So I think I can potentially squeeze in this pattern with something I have. And the needle size is 3 millimeter. This is a top-down round yoke with a little bit of texture around the yoke. So it's very similar to a ranunculus kind of pattern. And I think either this or the ranunculus is a very, very good option for some of my mohairs or alpacas that I only have limited quantity. So these are two examples. I got this for my birthday. This is my favorite yarn, local LA-based yarn dyer. You can get this yarn from the Wool House in Pasadena. This is her name. She's the Woolly Wobbler, and she's a local LA-based yarn dyer, and she used amazing base, and she dyed up really, really unique, pretty color. I just love this color. They're slightly pricey, so I don't normally get it. I don't get a huge sweater quantity. And this time my husband got me these for my birthday, and he got me 2 skeins. So this is her this is her Suri. Actually, it doesn't have the base for this yarn. I'm not sure what the base is called. I guess it's just called her Suri base. And it's 74% baby Suri alpaca and 26% mulberry silk. And this 50 gram is 328 yards. So I have 650 yards, which is half the meterage a Jewel Scanser called for. But like I said, I might just try to squeeze in a Jewel Scanser is probably too much of a stretch. I might squeeze in like a Maggie cardigan with this. I just feel like Maggie cardigan / poppy tee is just my go-to stockinette. I have already swatched this with this yarn. This yarn is indeed quite a bit thicker than a standard like brush alpaca yarn or a brushed wool or a silk mohair. This yarn is indeed a bit thicker, so it does look good by itself. You can use a single strand of this definitely to knit up something. So my plan for this is potentially just a Maggie cardigan. If you have any other thing with 650 yards, any other thing that you think would be appropriate for this, send me your recommendations. And the other thing I have that's probably also around 650 yards is this one. This is my own hand dye. I recently dyed these two. The yarn base is a gift from my friend. I believe it's a mohair plus wool kind of base with a little bit of polyamide, I believe. And this is also a thicker mohair. It's not the typical silk mohair. It feels more like a Suri alpaca kind of yarn, even though it is mohair. I dyed these 2 skeins. They're a slightly different color because I put it in the dye lot at different times. I only dyed this to exhaust this dye bath. I already have it. I don't want to waste the dye in there. I can see there's a lot of green dye left. So I exhausted the dye bath using these 2 skeins. I have a 3rd skein, but that's a completely different color. So this is another about 650 yard, 600 meter kind of mohair yarn I have. I'm thinking potentially I can go for a ranunculus with this, or even try jewel scanser, make it shorter, because my yardage is often way less, because this design is a very roomy. Yeah, it's a very roomy design, as I can see on this model. Look, the fit looks like it's super roomy. If I knit it way small, because it's a top down round yoke, I can always just stop the increase, make a tighter fit, potentially shorter sleeve. If I don't have yarn, I think I can potentially make that. Now that I'm talking about it, I might do jewel scanser with this. What do you think? And another yarn, before I go into pattern, another yarn that I really don't have a lot is this one skeiner. This is also for my birthday. I got it myself. We went to Big Bear Lake for my birthday, and there is a Big Bear yarn coal there. It's so cute. And this is her own hand dye. This is also a alpaca. This is also a kit silk mohair. 72% kit mohair, 28% mulberry silk, and 50 gram is 450 yards. And this is a really cute melon color. I'll call this a cantaloupe melon color. That's pretty accurate. I also think this will look really good as a jewel scanser, or potentially maybe I'll do this. What is it? Ranunculus. Maybe I'll do this one ranunculus and this one jewel scanser. I know they also look really cute together. That's another one skeiner that's even less yarn, 450 yards. Again, if you have recommendations, send them my way. Let me show you my next pattern that I think it could be a good pattern for a single skein of mohair. And that is the Giselle blouse by Fabel Knitwear. I have saved this pattern for a long time. I love the look of the huge puffy mohair sleeves. Very dramatic, yet just elegant and romantic. A great thing about this one is because the body is using a finger weight yarn and the sleeve is using mohair, I think this could be a great one to use up one skein of mohair. If you choose to do that, the only challenging thing is you need to find somewhat matching finger and weight yarn for the bottom and then use your mohair. So that's another challenge for a lot of my single skein mohairs. So what she's calling for is, this is using 3.5 millimeter needle. This gauge is 26 stitch on a rib. And then what she's calling for mohair and finger weight is she's calling for just 100 gram of a fingering weight yarn and then 75 gram of a mohair yarn. So something like this, like a lot of hand dyes, they sell 100 gram mohairs. So this will be plenty for the big sleeves, especially if you're planning to make the sleeve slightly less dramatic. I think it'll be totally enough. So I think this is a great pattern for single skein silk mohairs. Only challenge is you need to pair your finger weight yarn. So that's another one I've saved. Okay, I'm gonna share with you two more mohair tops that I have saved, and they're both by Fabel Knitwear. She is just the queen of romantic knits. The first one is definitely on my to knit list, but I'm just doing modifications to it. It's the Maud blouse. So this is a short sleeve, half sleeve kind of lace top with a little bit of lace detail, and it is a saddle shoulder design. I have saved this for a very long time. This one is knitted on 3.5 millimeter needles, and it's using 2 strands of lace weight mohair yarn, and the gauge is 20 stitch. Seems like this is a pretty standard gauge for 2 strands of mohair, 20 stitch. And I have browsed all the projects for this pattern, And one in particular is my favorite because she modified it to be a long sleeve. And I love the look better compared to the original design. I really like this long sleeve pattern. The original pattern is calling for about 1200 meter to 2000 meter of mohair. And my plan for this one, actually, I'm not sure if this is the plan for this one or the next one. Right, I don't have a plan. This is potentially my plan. I guess for the next pattern, I'll still talk about this yarn. This yarn could be for this or could be for the next one. This is a special hand dye yarn that I got last winter. This is the brand Zakami, and it's a hand dyer based in Edinburgh. And this color is called Hiragana. This is a 75% baby suri alpaca and 25% silk. And each skein is 50 gram for 420 meter. I got 2 skeins of this, so I have 840 yards of this yarn. So I think based on the meterage provided, well, holding it single, I don't have it. Holding it double, I definitely don't have enough, but I'm planning to hold this single with something. So I think I do have enough to knit up a mod blouse for this one. I have done swatch with this yarn already, but it was with a pink yarn that is way too purple, so I didn't like the look. Since then, I have bought another lace weight brushed yarn that is very similar to this color. So if I need to hold it together, I think I'll do that. Either that or my different option is to hold it with another lighter weight, like linen kind of yarn, to tone it down a little bit, something like this. What do you think? This is another just linen or cotton linen blend, the kind of dead stock machine knitting yarn. I might try to swatch this, see if I like it. If this combination works, then I'll definitely have enough to knit up some kind of potentially long sleeve top, and the mod blouse is a contender for that. And then the other option for this yarn, without combining it with any other yarn, it's the next pattern by Fabel Knitwear. And it is the Owlery blouse. I'm not sure how to say this word. So this blouse is, the construction is bottom up, but I like this pattern for the look instead of for this actual pattern, because I actually don't think I'll use this pattern because of the bottom up construction. So the inspiration I'm getting from this pattern is knitting up a blouse that the top part plus the sleeve is a very see-through fabric, meaning that you're only using single strand for the top and the sleeves, and you only use double strand for this body section. This way, I think with 2 skeins of this yarn, I can definitely complete a top, because you're saving the second strand from the top and the sleeves, and then you also get to let the yarn itself shine without combining it with anything else. And if it's not enough, then for the body part, I can combine it with something else. This pattern, again, it's a 20 stitch gauge on 4mm needles. And she's calling for very, very little yardage. She's calling for only 75 gram of mohair. So just like Giselle blouse, both of these designs is really friendly for 1 skein of mohair. And for the body part, she's calling for 75 gram of finger weight yarn. So I think this pattern is another contender for this yarn. So that's all the mohair patterns that I have saved, and I definitely have some that are potentially ready to cast on A lot of them are just an idea, not sure exactly how I will execute them. Last but not least, last category of pattern is my favorite, and that is colorwork. I crave colorwork knitting. And I haven't had, wait, actually I have a whip currently that is a colorwork. That's a very, very old whip. So I do have something. I think I need to have some kind of colorwork at all times. And these patterns are ones that I do like, but I'm not completely sure I want to knit these patterns. I save these patterns mostly because I want to use up my yarn. Again, my special hand dye yarns. So for the first two patterns, I saved them because I'm trying to think what would be good patterns for using a variegated hand dye yarn. What kind of palette, what kind of pattern, what kind of colorwork design will make this kind of hand dye yarn shine? And personally for me, I think if you're using variegated kind of yarn, the best colorwork design is not very intricate, detailed design, but more simple lines, more geometric, simple lines, whether it's lying down this way or maybe it's curves or waves. I just think more slightly larger block of simple geometric shapes will make this kind of hand dye yarn, variegated yarn, shine a little more. Therefore, I saved two patterns that in my head might work. I think I just need to swatch to really see. The first one I have is the Dama mohair yoke. And this is a pretty, I saw a lot of people knit up this sweater last year. This is a top-down yoke colorwork that's knitted using 3 strands of mohair. And the gauge is 14 stitch using 8mm needles. That is huge needles. I've seen a lot of beautiful mohair versions of this sweater. I'm thinking, like I said, it's pretty simple lines. I'm thinking of using variegated yarn for that. In that case, it won't be a mohair design. I am not exactly sure if not being a mohair design, if it will still look really good, mostly because all these examples are mohair ones. So the two yarns I really want to use, I'm showing you right now, is this one I got from Southern California Fiber Fair, SoCal Fiber Fair, 2 years ago. This is by the Silver Penny, this yarn. And this colorway, I think is a limited edition special colorway. This is called the California Poppy. So it's a very appropriate name to get from SoCal Fiber Fair. And I believe this is a finger weight yarn, so I have 400 meter of this. It's a very beautiful autumnal color, exactly up my alley. Very autumnal color. It has this beautiful orange, orangey brown and beautiful greens to it with tiny bit of speckles. I love this yarn. I believe this is a super wash. So I have swatched this a little bit with a brown, I think with Knitting for Olive merino in the brown color. And it's pretty obvious this is a super wash yarn, so it's pretty, not shiny, but it's quite smooth. I'm not sure what kind of yarn to pair it with that will blend well with this kind of superwash yarn. And the other thing is, I'm also not sure what kind of color to pair with it that will make this color look good. I thought about, just more basic creamy color, or honestly, other than a basic creamy color, I couldn't think of another option. What would you pair as the main color with this yarn? Please let me know. And the other one is my most recent acquisition. I'm still editing that video. I went to New York City. I did my own New York City yarn crawl, and my most heart-jumping yarn from that trip is this one. It's again another very autumnal yarn. It's a different execution of autumnal yarn. It has more of this grayish green base and with this wine kind of highlight and these golden yellow highlight. So these are both very beautiful executions of autumnal yarns, I would say. I love them so much. They're both absolutely beautiful. And this is by this yarn brand, which I've never heard of. And the colorway is called Vintage. This is also 100% superwash wool, but this is a thicker yarn. This is 100 gram for 200 meter-ish, 215 yards, kind of thicker. So I have less of this color. So this I also thought, again, it could be like a basic creamy color. And then looking at my yarn cabinet, I also thought maybe this will look good with the orange as a base. What do you think about that? Same with this one. What do you think about using an orange yarn base? I really like this shade of orange. This is a Cascade 220 sport weight, non-superwash, and this color is, oh, they don't have the name, they only have color. The color is 1019. I believe its color is marmalade. That's possible. And the other thing I thought about is this Isair yarn I showed you earlier. It's like a grayish beigey color. This is Isair Alpaca 2. I think this is probably too dark to pair with these dark yarns. Overall, they will just make the whole sweater very dark. So probably not that. If you have any other good suggestions, please share. So the other pattern I'm thinking for this kind of variegated colorwork yarn will be this pattern. This pattern is a Japanese pattern. It's a pattern by the yarn brand Daruma. And this is, I believe the name is Daruma Diamond, something like that. It's a Japanese name. It's completely in Japanese. I've seen one example using a variegated yarn for this pattern, and I really like how it looked. It's not a super high contrast, and with the variegation for the thicker wavy lines. So these are the two colorwork patterns I'm thinking for my beautiful variegated hand-dyed yarn. If you have any other pattern suggestions for a similar category, please let me know. I've also considered, I think, a simple all-over colorwork. Maybe something like this can also look good for a hand-dyed yarn. But with both of these, I don't have enough to do an entire sweater. That means I need to pair something else as the contrast colors. That's just more mental work to be done. Yeah, I have more, but I think I'm just gonna stop here. I also really want to knit a brioche cardigan. I'm not sure which pattern to use. Yeah, and I also want to knit another Guernsey Genzer. So yeah, those are all the patterns that I have been thinking about, and I'm just dumping it here with you guys. Let me know what are the patterns that you really want to cast on or has been living in your head that you just want to share. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you next time. Bye.